Good morning/afternoon/evening, everyone. Let's be honest, how many of us have felt stuck, frustrated, or like we were our own worst enemy? We say we want change, we want success, we want love, we want fulfillment, but when the moment to act arrives, we hesitate. We talk ourselves out of it. We wait for the right time, which, let's be real, never actually comes. Today, I want to talk about how to stop screwing yourself over, not by trying to be perfect, but by daring to step into courage, even when it feels messy and uncertain. Let's start with a hard truth: if we want a different outcome in life, we have to stop choosing comfort over courage. Our brains are wired for safety. They love predictability. And when something feels uncomfortable, whether it's speaking up, setting a boundary, or taking a risk, we default to avoiding discomfort. But here's the thing: discomfort is not danger. Discomfort is the price of growth. So, the next time fear whispers, "What if I fail?" I want you to ask yourself, "What if I succeed? What if this uncomfortable step is the very thing that leads to the life I want?" The stories we tell ourselves matter. If the voice in your head says, "I'm not good enough, I always mess things up," or "I can't handle this," you'll live by those scripts. But here's the truth: just because you think something doesn't mean it's true. So, I want you to pause and ask, who wrote this story? Was it an old failure? A past rejection? Someone else's opinion? If that story isn't serving you, rewrite it. Instead of, "I'm not ready," try, "I'm learning as I go." Instead of, "I'm too much," try, "I am worthy as I am." Changing your inner dialogue won't happen overnight, but every time you choose self-compassion over self-criticism, you take back your power. Let's get one thing straight: perfection is a myth. It is a self-imposed prison that keeps us from showing up fully in our lives. We procrastinate, overthink, and avoid taking action because we're afraid of getting it wrong. But what if I told you that messing up is actually the best thing that could happen? Failure is not the opposite of success, it's part of it. Every successful person has failed probably more times than we can count. The difference? They didn't let it define them. They used it as a stepping stone. So, instead of aiming for perfection, aim for progress. Show up. Do the thing. Make mistakes. Learn. Grow. And keep moving forward. The last piece of this puzzle is action. Not just any action, but aligned action, decisions and steps that reflect the life you truly want. We often wait until we feel motivated. But here's the secret: motivation follows action, not the other way around. You don't wait to feel ready, you decide to start. And once you take that first step, momentum builds. So ask yourself, what's one small action I can take today that aligns with my goals? Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Whether it's sending that email, signing up for that class, or finally having that hard conversation, commit to doing it. Here's the bottom line: you are not stuck. You are not broken. And you are certainly not powerless. The only thing standing between you and the life you want is the choice to stop screwing yourself over. Choose courage over comfort. Rewrite the story in your head. Embrace imperfection. And most importantly, take aligned action. Because the life you want? It's already waiting for you. The question is, are you ready to go after it? Courage over comfort is a simple idea, but living it is anything but easy. At its core, it means choosing growth over stagnation, choosing vulnerability over hiding, and choosing the unknown over the familiar. It means making decisions that challenge us rather than staying in the safety of what we already know. And yet, so many of us get stuck in cycles of avoidance, in patterns of playing it safe, in waiting for the right time to step forward. But the right time never comes. The perfect moment never arrives. And so, we end up choosing comfort not because it makes us happy, but because it makes us feel safe. But safety and fulfillment are not the same thing. There's a difference between surviving and truly living. The problem with constantly choosing comfort is that it keeps us from the very things we want most. It keeps us in jobs that drain us, relationships that no longer serve us, and routines that keep us small. We tell ourselves that we'll take the leap when we feel more confident, when we have more money, when we have more time. We say we'll speak up when we're sure people will approve, we'll take the opportunity when we're certain we won't fail, and we'll show up fully when we're absolutely ready. But confidence doesn't come first. Clarity doesn't come first. Readiness doesn't come first. What comes first is courage. Courage is messy. It's uncomfortable. It rarely feels good in the moment. It's raising your hand in the meeting even though your heart is pounding. It's having that difficult conversation even though your voice shakes. It's saying yes to something you're not sure you're ready for. It's choosing to step forward when every instinct in your body is telling you to stay back. But here's the thing, every single time we choose courage over comfort, we expand what's possible for us. We stretch the limits of what we think we can handle. We prove to ourselves that we are more capable than we believed. Most people think that courage is about being fearless, but that's not true. Courage is about taking action despite fear. It's about recognizing that fear is just a feeling, not a fact. The discomfort we experience when we do something new or uncertain isn't a sign that we should stop, it's a sign that we are growing. The moment we start to see discomfort as a signal of progress instead of a warning to retreat, everything changes. Instead of running from hard conversations, we lean into them. Instead of avoiding risks, we evaluate them with a different mindset. Instead of holding ourselves back, we start showing up, imperfectly but powerfully. There's a reason we admire people who have done hard things, who have taken big risks, who have faced rejection and kept going. It's because deep down, we know that their courage is what made them who they are. But the truth is, they weren't born that way. They weren't given an extra dose of bravery or a life without fear. They just decided that their dreams, their values, and their growth mattered more than their discomfort. The reality is, we don't build courage in one big, life-altering moment. We build it in the small, everyday choices we make. It's saying what we really think instead of what's easiest. It's setting a boundary instead of staying silent. It's admitting we don't have all the answers instead of pretending we do. It's asking for help when we need it instead of struggling alone. It's understanding that failure isn't a reflection of our worth, it's evidence that we are in the arena, trying, learning, growing. Choosing courage means understanding that rejection might happen. Failure might happen. Discomfort is inevitable. But what's even more painful than any of those things is regret. Looking back and realizing we let fear make our choices. Realizing we had the opportunity to step up, to take a chance, to say yes to something bigger and we didn't. Not because we couldn't, but because we were afraid. Courage is the difference between the life we settle for and the life we are capable of. And the only way to stop screwing ourselves over is to make the decision, over and over again, to step into discomfort, to take the risk, to trust that we can handle whatever happens next. Courage isn't about knowing it will all work out, it's about knowing that even if it doesn't, we will be okay. That even if we fail, even if we stumble, even if we face setbacks, we will get back up. And every single time we do, we become stronger. There will always be a reason to choose comfort. Always. The brain is wired to keep us safe. It will always find an excuse to wait, to hesitate, to stay in the familiar. But the cost of comfort is that we never become who we are meant to be. We never test our potential. We never take the chances that could change everything. And so, the challenge is this: the next time you find yourself at the edge of something scary, something uncertain, something uncomfortable, ask yourself, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? What would I do if I wasn't waiting for permission, for certainty, for a guarantee? And then, do exactly that. Not because it's easy. Not because it's comfortable. But because your future depends on it. Because the version of you who is stronger, bolder, more fulfilled, that version of you is waiting on the other side of courage. The way we speak to ourselves shapes everything we do. Our inner narrative, the thoughts, beliefs, and stories we repeat in our minds, has the power to either push us forward or hold us back. Often, without realizing it, we sabotage our own potential simply by the way we talk to ourselves. We tell ourselves we are not good enough, not smart enough, not capable enough. We convince ourselves that success is for other people, that we're too late, too inexperienced, too flawed to go after what we want. And over time, these thoughts don't just stay in our heads, they become the reality we live in. Think about it: if someone followed you around all day and constantly told you that you weren't capable, that you were going to fail, that you should just give up, how long would it take before you started believing them? How long before you stopped trying altogether? And yet, so many of us allow that exact voice to play on repeat in our minds, every single day. The problem isn't that we aren't capable, the problem is that we are living according to a story we never questioned. The truth is, most of our inner narratives are formed by past experiences. Maybe it was something a teacher said when we were young. Maybe it was the way a parent reacted when we made a mistake. Maybe it was a failure, a rejection, a painful moment that we never fully processed. Without realizing it, we take these moments and turn them into lifelong beliefs. One bad experience becomes I'm not good at this. One rejection becomes I'll never be successful. One moment of embarrassment becomes I should never put myself out there again. And so, we stop. We shrink. We avoid risks, not because we actually can't handle them, but because we believe the story in our heads. But here's the most important thing to realize, just because a thought is familiar doesn't mean it's true. Just because we've believed something for years doesn't mean we have to keep believing it. We have the power to rewrite our inner narrative at any moment. We have the power to decide that the story we've been telling ourselves is not the one we want to keep living. So, how do we do that? The first step is awareness. We can't change a narrative we don't even realize is playing in the background. Pay attention to the way you speak to yourself. Notice the thoughts that come up when you face a challenge, when you make a mistake, when you consider taking a risk. Are your thoughts filled with self-doubt, self-criticism, and fear? Or do they reflect resilience, courage, and self-compassion? Most of us default to the negative without even realizing it. But once we become aware of the script running in our minds, we can begin to challenge it. The next step is to question the story. Where did this belief come from? Who told me this was true? Is this thought based on facts, or is it just a fear that I've accepted as truth? More often than not, we'll realize that our inner narrative isn't based on reality, it's based on assumptions, on past wounds, on things we picked up along the way but never stopped to examine. And when we question it, we create space to replace it with something better. This is where the real work begins, rewriting the script. Instead of saying, I'm not good enough, we choose to say, I am learning, and I am growing. Instead of saying, I always fail, we choose to say, every setback is a lesson that moves me forward. Instead of saying, I'll never be confident, we say, confidence is something I build by taking action, even when I'm scared. These small shifts may seem simple, but over time, they change everything. Because here's the thing, the way we talk to ourselves determines the way we show up in the world. If we constantly tell ourselves we are not capable, we won't even try. If we tell ourselves we are going to fail, we won't take risks. If we tell ourselves that we are not worthy, we'll settle for less than we deserve. But when we change the narrative, we change our actions. And when we change our actions, we change our lives. This isn't about fake positivity or pretending that challenges don't exist. It's about choosing a mindset that empowers us rather than limits us. It's about giving ourselves the same grace we would give to a friend. Think about how you would speak to someone you care about if they were struggling. You wouldn't say, you're a failure, you should just give up. You would remind them of their strengths, encourage them to keep going, and help them see the bigger picture. Yet, we rarely extend that same kindness to ourselves. Rewriting our inner narrative is a daily practice. It's not a one-time thing. It requires intention, self-awareness, and patience. There will be days when the old beliefs try to creep back in, when self-doubt whispers that we're not enough. But the difference is that now, we don't just accept those thoughts as truth. We recognize them for what they are: outdated stories that no longer serve us. And we choose, again and again, to rewrite them. The most powerful thing we can do is decide that our past does not define our future. That we are not limited by the stories we once believed. That at any moment, we have the power to change the way we see ourselves, the way we show up, and the way we move forward. Because the truth is, we are far more capable than we give ourselves credit for. The only thing standing in our way is the belief that we can't. And once we rewrite that belief, once we change the way we speak to ourselves, there is no limit to what we can do. Perfection is an illusion, yet so many of us spend our lives chasing it. We believe that if we can just get everything right, if we can just avoid making mistakes, if we can be flawless in our actions, then we will finally feel worthy. We will finally be successful. We will finally be enough. But the truth is, perfection is not the key to success, happiness, or fulfillment. It is the very thing that keeps us from all of those things. The pursuit of perfection is exhausting, and no matter how hard we try, we will always fall short. Why? Because perfection does not exist. Yet, despite knowing this logically, so many of us continue to hold ourselves to impossible standards. We tell ourselves that we cannot start something until we know we can do it perfectly. We hesitate to share our ideas because we fear they won't be good enough. We avoid taking risks because we are terrified of failure. We equate making a mistake with being a failure, and so we play it safe, stay in our comfort zones, and never allow ourselves to fully experience life. But when we try to live up to an unattainable standard, we are not protecting ourselves, we are holding ourselves back. The fear of imperfection does not just keep us from success, it keeps us from connection. When we believe that we must be perfect, we begin to hide our true selves. We don't let others see our struggles, our doubts, or our insecurities. We wear masks, pretending that we have it all figured out, because we fear that if people saw our flaws, they would think less of us. But the irony is that perfection is not what draws people to us. It is our humanity, our vulnerability, our willingness to be real. People don't connect with perfection, they connect with authenticity. When we embrace imperfection, we give ourselves permission to show up fully, to be seen as we truly are, and to build deeper, more meaningful relationships. We also have to recognize that perfectionism does not lead to excellence. In fact, it does the opposite. When we are obsessed with getting everything just right, we become paralyzed by the fear of making a mistake. We overthink, we procrastinate, we second-guess ourselves at every turn. We focus so much on avoiding failure that we never allow ourselves to take the risks that lead to real growth. The most successful people in the world are not those who never make mistakes, they are the ones who learn from their mistakes, who use failure as a stepping stone rather than a stopping point. They understand that imperfection is not a weakness, it is an opportunity. Think about a time in your life when you struggled, when things didn't go as planned, when you faced a challenge that seemed impossible. Now think about what came from that experience. Did you learn something? Did you grow? Did you develop a new skill, a new mindset, a new sense of resilience? The truth is, we learn far more from our failures than from our successes. Growth does not happen in the absence of mistakes, it happens because of them. When we stop seeing imperfection as something to be ashamed of and start seeing it as part of the journey, we unlock a new level of freedom. We stop fearing failure and start embracing the lessons it brings. Perfectionism also robs us of joy. When we are constantly chasing an unattainable ideal, we never feel satisfied. No matter how much we accomplish, it never feels like enough. We finish one goal and immediately move on to the next, without ever taking a moment to celebrate how far we've come. We compare ourselves to others, always feeling like we are falling short, never allowing ourselves to enjoy the process because we are too focused on the outcome. But life is not meant to be a race towards some impossible standard. It is meant to be experienced, with all of its ups and downs, its victories and its setbacks, its beautiful, messy, imperfect moments. When we let go of perfection, we allow ourselves to truly live. Embracing imperfection does not mean settling for less. It does not mean giving up or not striving to be our best. It simply means accepting that our best will never be flawless and that is okay. It means understanding that mistakes are not failures, they are part of learning. It means giving ourselves the same grace and compassion that we would give to a friend. We would never tell someone we love that they are unworthy because they made a mistake, yet we do this to ourselves all the time. We beat ourselves up over every flaw, every misstep, every perceived shortcoming. But what if, instead of criticizing ourselves, we chose to embrace our imperfections? What if we saw them not as weaknesses, but as evidence that we are trying, growing, and evolving? We embrace imperfection, we give ourselves permission to start before we feel ready. We stop waiting for the perfect time, the perfect plan, the perfect conditions, and we just take action. We allow ourselves to be beginners, to make mistakes, to figure things out as we go. And in doing so, we make progress in ways we never could if we were waiting for everything to be just right. We also free ourselves from the weight of unrealistic expectations. We stop measuring our worth by our productivity, our achievements, or how perfectly we meet society's standards. Instead, we define success on our own terms. We recognize that our value does not come from being flawless, it comes from being real, from showing up fully, from daring to try, even when we don't have all the answers. At the end of the day, the people who make the biggest impact in the world are not the ones who never make mistakes. They are the ones who keep going despite them. They are the ones who refuse to let imperfection hold them back. They are the ones who understand that true success is not about never falling, it's about always getting back up. So the question is, what would you do if you were no longer afraid of being imperfect? What dreams would you pursue? What risks would you take? What parts of yourself would you finally allow to be seen? The moment you stop striving for perfection and start embracing who you truly are, flaws and all, is the moment you step into your full power. It is the moment you give yourself permission to show up, to take action, and to create a life that is not perfect, but meaningful, fulfilling, and real. Taking action is easy. We do it every day. We check off tasks, go through the motions, complete the things we think we are supposed to do. But taking aligned action now, that is a different story. Aligned action is not just about movement, it's about moving in the right direction. It's about making choices that are in sync with who we truly are, with what we value, with what we want to create in our lives. It's about stepping out of autopilot and being intentional about where we put our time, energy, and effort. Too often, we mistake being busy for being productive. We fill our days with tasks that look good on the surface, but deep down, we know they are not actually getting us any closer to the life we want. We say yes to things out of obligation, fear, or habit, without ever pausing to ask ourselves, is this actually what I want? Does this choice align with my values, my goals, my vision for my life? Am I doing this because it matters to me, or because I am afraid of what will happen if I don't? The difference between action and aligned action is the difference between running in circles and making real progress. Taking aligned action requires self-awareness. It requires getting honest with ourselves about what we truly want, not just what we think we should want. We have to stop and ask ourselves the hard questions: what actually lights me up? What kind of impact do I want to have? What do I value most? And once we have those answers, we have to be willing to make decisions that honor them. This means setting boundaries. This means saying no to things that do not align, even if they seem like good opportunities. This means letting go of paths that no longer serve us, even if they are familiar and comfortable. Fear is one of the biggest obstacles to aligned action. We hesitate because we don't want to make the wrong decision. We wait for clarity, for certainty, for some kind of guarantee that things will work out before we take the leap. But clarity does not come from overthinking. It comes from action. It comes from taking a step forward, learning, adjusting, and then taking another step. Aligned action is not about having all the answers before you start, it is about trusting yourself enough to start anyway. Sometimes, we know exactly what aligned action looks like, but we resist it because it requires discomfort. Maybe it means leaving a job that no longer fulfills us. Maybe it means setting a boundary with someone we love. Maybe it means stepping into a new version of ourselves that feels unfamiliar and uncertain. Aligned action often requires courage, because it means doing what is right for us, even when it is not easy. But the cost of not taking aligned action is even greater. When we ignore what we truly want, when we stay stuck in situations that do not serve us, when we let fear dictate our choices, we betray ourselves. And over time, that self-betrayal turns into frustration, resentment, and regret. Aligned action also means letting go of perfection. It means understanding that progress is more important than getting everything right. So often, we don't take action because we feel like we are not ready. We tell ourselves that we need more time, more experience, more confidence before we can begin. But confidence does not come first, action does. We build confidence by showing up, by trying, by learning through experience. If we wait until we feel fully ready, we will be waiting forever. It is easy to get caught up in the big picture, to feel overwhelmed by how far we have to go. But aligned action is not about figuring out every step of the journey, it is about taking the next right step. It is about asking ourselves, what can I do today that moves me closer to where I want to be? Maybe that means having one honest conversation. Maybe that means dedicating 10 minutes to something that excites us. Maybe that means making one decision that honors what we truly want. The path unfolds as we walk it. The clarity comes from taking action, adjusting, and taking action again. Aligned action also means releasing the need for approval. When we start making choices that align with our truth, not everyone will understand. Some people will question us. Some will doubt us. Some will try to convince us to stay where we are because it makes them more comfortable. But we cannot live our lives based on other people's expectations. We cannot make decisions out of fear of what others might think. At the end of the day, we are the ones who have to live with our choices. We are the ones who have to look back and ask ourselves, did I honor who I truly am, or did I let fear keep me small? Taking aligned action does not mean we will never fail. It does not mean the path will always be clear or that things will always go as planned. But what it does mean is that we will be moving forward in a way that feels true to us. It means that we will be making choices based on what we actually want, rather than what we think we should do. It means that we will be living with intention, rather than simply going through the motions. So the question is, what would it look like for you to take aligned action today? Not someday. Not when you feel ready. Not when everything is perfect. But today. What decision have you been avoiding because it feels uncomfortable? What step have you been hesitating to take because you are waiting for permission? What would happen if, just for today, you trusted yourself enough to take one step forward? The life you want is built through action, not just any action, but aligned action. The kind of action that honors who you are. The kind of action that moves you toward what you truly want. The kind of action that, years from now, will make you look back and say, I am proud of the way I showed up for myself. And that starts with a choice to stop hesitating, stop waiting, stop doubting, and to start moving in the direction of the life you were meant. Alright, my friends. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Your support means the world, and it helps bring more inspiring content your way. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Let me know if you'd like a more personalized outro.